The continued operation of the safe harbour schemes is something that is currently under debate worldwide. Copyright owners in the United States are now seeking to reopen the legislative bargain that was struck back in the late 90s in order to see whether they can impose more obligations on telecommunications providers. In Australia, telecommunications providers are lobbying heavily to get the safe harbours extended to operate to cover other service providers that are not internet service providers, so that search engines and content hosts can operate within Australia with some degree of certainty. Meanwhile, telecommunications providers are resistant to much change in the scheme, except to the extent that they're starting to complain about the volume of notice and takedown that they receive and have to deal with every day. Civil society groups are also quite concerned about notice and takedown. As this volume of notices gets larger, it becomes much more of a threat to freedom of expression, particularly because notices that are received are not always accurate or honest. The size of the scheme and the obligations it imposes means that there are strong threats to freedom of expression through notice and takedown. The Chilling Effects Clearinghouse, which collects notices that are sent to large major intermediaries in the US and elsewhere, has done some preliminary analysis to show that the quality of notices varies wildly. The system is open to abuse from, for example, competitors who use notice and takedown to remove legitimate competitive speech from hosting service providers. It's also used by people who want to silence critical speech. They are able to manufacture a copyright claim in order to silence critical speech of others on the internet. While notice and takedown schemes provide some protections for abuse, they're not particularly strong. So there is ongoing pressure, particularly from civil society groups, who worry about using this system more and more to rely on private intermediaries to remove speech from their networks. These groups are actively pushing for more procedures to ensure the transparency and accountability of the system, and more pressure on intermediaries to resist malformed or misused notices. So there are a series of competing interests in the notice and takedown regime. It does provide a fast and effective mechanism for private entities to request the removal of potentially infringing content online. It does provide some certainty for stakeholders, for the intermediaries who would otherwise potentially be liable for hosting that content. But it doesn't do a fantastic job of protecting the rights of individuals to freedom of expression and freedom of access to information. Worldwide, we're seeing a lot of pressure for large intermediaries to take more care and to be more accountable when they remove content.